Hello everyone, this is Tom from Dirk Witte Music Store in Utrecht, the Netherlands. Today we are taking a look at the store's Holy Grail. We are taking a look at this incredibly special, original 1960 Gibson ES-345 TD semi-hollow body electric guitar in its original cherry finish with dual gold PAF humbucker pickups. So this is indeed, you heard that right, a real deal 1960 Gibson ES-345 with the real PAFs. Stupidly rare, really just kind of like from the golden age of Gibson. That is like, so like the late 1950s, early 1960s, that is where they kind of like perfected everything, if you will, when it came to electric guitars, especially so like the Les Pauls as well as the ES style of guitars, and we have one of those. So incredibly cool. So yeah, this is an ES-345, and it was first introduced in 1958, so 2 years prior to this one, along with the 335 as well as the 355. And it's kind of like, you can kind of like compare this or like the ES style of guitars to kind of like the Les Pauls, in the sense that the 335 would be the standard, and then the 355 would be like the custom, so with like the big pearl blocks and stuff. And then the 345 is kind of like in between those two. So it's kind of like an odd duck at that it is not a standard and it's also not like a custom, but yeah, just a bit more fancy than like the standard, but not as fancy as the custom. So we have then got these more unique style of inlays on the fingerboard, as well as all gold hardware, some more fancy binding, as well as a baritone switch, which you would not get on the 335. And then the 355 would get like, the fingerboard would then be made out of ebony, and then it would also get like the big pearl blocks, as well as like the big diamond on the headstock, which this one does not have, as well as binding on the headstock and stuff. So yeah, 345 is unique in that sense, but in all of the right ways. Famously played by B.B. King as well as Freddie King, and a lot more. Like this is still kind of like, it is just pretty much like a 335, but then with a baritone switch added, and then with the gold hardware, as well as a little bit more binding, and then again the fingerboard inlay. So yeah, an awesome ES style of guitar. So let's dive into the specs of this historic electric guitar. So we've got a semi-hollow body construction. So we've got a maple block in the center. Then the wings are hollow, as we can definitely tell. You've got the dual sound holes, F-holes right there. And then the top, sides and back are a laminated maple. This being from 1960, it features the thin top. So that is also kind of like what makes these unique as compared to like later models. Or like modern models of like the ES style models. And what does that mean is that the maple top on here is a little bit more thin than they would be in later years. So it makes it a little bit more resonant and a little bit more airy, like that that the top is allowed to like move a bit more than the later ones, which then results in what some people might call just a better tone. So that is incredibly rare to see. Like even the Gibson custom shop models do not get the thin top. So that is really one of those things that you can only get from the real deal ones from the late 1950s, early 1960s. So that is very cool to see. Obviously in a beautiful original cherry finish with all of that awesome patina on the top, sides and back. We do have some finish touch-ups here and there, but they have been done just beautifully well. And this guitar originally came with a Bixby, but it has been converted to the Tune-o-matic and stop bar tailpiece configuration. So that is very common to see, but what that then also means that you can see these little dots over here. You can see that over here and over there with the bridge. Then also over here, which then means that the Bixby was then drilled into those spots right there. So as over here at the strap button, you can see those 4 little dowels that have been installed later in order to fill those holes. The configuration has been done a very long time ago, probably in the late 1960s, because this tailpiece also kind of like dates to the late 1960s, as in that the type of a construction is very much like those that you see in the late 1960s. So it would only make sense that the conversion has been done in the late 1960s. But as we can tell, it is just, yeah, it just looks awesome. The tailpiece has been installed just beautifully at just the perfect spot. So yeah, no problems there whatsoever. We think I got 3-ply binding around the top and then a single ply binding around the back. That is like also like a difference between the 335 and the 345, because the 335 would only get a single ply binding around the top. And then again, dual PAF humbucker pickups, which used to be gold. You can still see a little bit of gold over there on maybe like the pole piece screws, but all of the gold pretty much has worn off, or like 90 to like 95% of it, which is obviously not a problem at all when it comes to the tone, because these give you the sound like these. Deliver the real deal PAF sounds because they are real deal PAF humbuckers. So incredibly awesome. Pickup rings are also original. Those have also been like checked, as well as the bridge, the original gold Tunematic bridge. It is the non-retaining wire construction. So if you do decide to replace the strings, do be careful with that bridge, because these saddles would then just fall out. So that is kind of like good to know. Original pickguard, 4-ply material, so white, black, along with your original bracket. Got a 3A pickup selector switch, also original, and then obviously dual volumes and dual tone controls. Veritone switch, also original, and again that is also what makes this guitar unique from the 335. The Veritone switch, which then gives you a lot more tones. How that then works is that as you kind of like turn up the Veritone, the tone kind of like becomes more thin and like a little bit more like transistor radio type. Does give you a lot of cool tones, a lot of unique tones, but it is not super popular, especially nowadays. But at that time, that was still very new. So Gibson put that in the ES-345 as well as the 355. It is also, by the way, wired in mono, so that is also very nice, because this was originally stereo, which was also kind of like a new type of technology that they came up with in those days. But in the modern style, it is just not very useful, because you then like need 2 amps in order to like get the tones that you would normally get, and that is quite a hassle. And you would then also like need a unique type of a cable, so that is just a lot of hassle, and a lot of people just really did not like that feature. So a lot of these have been converted to mono, including this one. That's actually just a good thing, because you can just use it as a normal electric guitar with no worries whatsoever. But obviously it is good to know that that has been changed. The Veritone has also been refitted, so that's also good to know. And then some wires of that harness have then been replaced. And the poker chip for the Veritone is also a repro, so that is also non-original, but it definitely just looks the part, as we can definitely tell. Just looks the right, correct way, as it should. And then obviously here you plug it in. Moving on to the neck. Mahogany neck with no headstock break or repair, so that is very, very nice to see. With the original rosewood fingerboard as well as the original frets. And then again, the inlays is what makes this guitar unique from the 335. You got the split parallelogram inlays that just look super, super cool, as well as binding around the fingerboard. The neck profile, it is a little bit more slim than the later 1950s, as you would probably expect. So 1960 is kind of like that year when the necks became a little bit more thin than they had made in the years prior. But this is by no means too thin. Actually still very nicely rounded, and just yeah, definitely kind of like a C shape with just a little bit of shoulder, kind of like a slim taper style, but it just plays and feels just very, very nice. And also got that really awesome patina going on over there on the back, but nothing too major. But obviously you can definitely tell that this guitar has been played a bunch, which is actually just a good thing. And then again, the original frets, so that is also just very, very awesome to see. Also then got the original bone nut over there, and then your headstock, obviously with your inlay, that has also just beautifully faded and aged with your Gibson logo done in pearl, as well as your crown inlay. And then the truss foot cover is also non-original, but it is the correct style, as in that it reached stereo, as this was originally wired to be stereo. The tuners are also non-original, but they are like vintage and period correct. Like these are actual real 1950s Clusen gold tuners that just look super, super awesome. The tuning tips have not shrunk that badly as you would sometimes see. Like those would like turn into like this really nasty brown type of color, and they would just basically just break down as you would try to use them. But these do not have that yet. But I do want you to know that they are beginning to show like their age, as in that they do not feel as secure like some of them. Like here on the G tuner, the tip is definitely like not as secure, as in that it is a little bit wobbly, and that is due to its like shrinking, because the material that was used for these, I'm not entirely sure what that is, but it is prone to like shrinking over time. So that is what you are also now seeing, but it is the original style of tuner, so in that sense it is correct. But yeah, do know that these are prone to that. So for like in the future, you can still use them now just like as is, but I would definitely recommend to be just a little bit careful and like maybe like just grab the tuner over here kind of like closer to the actual metal tuner itself, so that you do not damage the tips. Yeah, that is just my tip of the day. Also comes with a hard shell case, not the original one for this, but a original style case. So this comes with an original 1960 case. So also with the black exterior, yellow interior that you would also see when this was first bought from the store back in 1960. So it is a correct case at that. So you kind of like really get the like the full correct picture at that. So that is very, very awesome to see. So yeah, all in all, a real deal 1960 Gibson ES-345, incredibly rare and incredibly cool to see and to have in the shop with the original double gold PAF humbucker pickups. Those are just incredibly rare for a good reason, because they just sound fantastic, and that is really where it all basically just started. All of the rock tones that just like followed after that, all thanks to the original PAF humbucker design that they came up with back in the late 1950s. So yeah, moving on, let's hear what it sounds like. But first, if you're interested in this original 1960 Gibson ES-345 TD, be sure to head over to the links in the description for further details. By the way, do also be sure to go over to the reverb page and to our page on our website to like read up on like more details, because there are also a lot more details to be known of this incredible electric guitar. Also kind of like the pot readings and stuff, and the codes and stuff. So meaning that you would have all of the right data for this incredible 1960 Gibson ES-345. If you enjoyed this demo, be sure to like the video and to subscribe to the channel for more cool weekly demos of a very cool vintage gear like this, like cool electric guitars, acoustic guitars, bass guitars even, all of that really cool stuff. Also be sure to like us and to follow us on our socials, Instagram and Facebook. Links are also in the description. With all that being said, let's see what this original 1960 Gibson ES-345 in its original cherry red finish with dual PAF humbucker pickups sounds like. going to be playing it through the 1966 Marshall JTM 45 Blues Breaker style amplifier, also an incredibly cool vintage rare amp. Then first the clean tones, and then for the dirty tones I'll be using a clon, a real deal clon, so also an incredibly rare and incredibly awesome piece of gear. So yeah, let's then move on to that part and let's hear what this original Holy Grail 1960 Gibson ES-345 sounds like, and let's take it for a spin.